Look. Okay, 51-7, take it to the grave. Legends never die, that's why we still awake. Sun keep beaming, city still breathing. Living in the moment, never gonna leave it. 51-7, take it to the grave. Legends never die, that's why we still awake. Sun keep beaming, city still breathing. Living in the moment, never gonna leave it. I ain't never seen a city sleep. You can really hit a city breathe. They be saying we ain't got culture, they just don't know what it really means. No, we gotta represent heavy underrated, yeah, we gotta make a scene. No shade to the other guys, but you can't deny we the one to be. Capital city, the map looking pretty when we on it. So community driven, the people we living with, loving each other. That's all that we seeking for. Ain't no reason to need more.
Carmen Argersinger, how are you, my friend?
Doing well, Justin. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really glad you're here. We've had a lot of conversations with a lot of different folks up to date when it comes to community investment, community engagement, people who understand the mission in their own ways, in the Promise way. There are very few people, though, I will say, in this entire city who understand the Promise the way you do and have committed to it in a way that I think has transformed our outlook. So let me do a little bit of background on that before I ask any questions. In the nonprofit world, and what's amazing is you understand this having been a nonprofit professional and now into the corporate philanthropy world. In the nonprofit world, the concept of fundraising is so daunting and so intimidating and so dangerously transactional if we're not careful, and so it's an incredibly humbling process to have to find folks who get it but can really understand the mission, what partnership looks like, the burden of running an organization, while also holding those nonprofits to account, because it's really important that we are good stewards and we are effective with our funds. You have, this is the longest intro yet. You have created a place, a presence, a beyond brand. It is a presence that you bring to a nonprofit table that says, we understand the work that you're doing. We believe in it. Not only am I going to put my heart and time into it, Delta Dental is going to invest in it, and we're going to see the needle move. Carmen Argersinger, how did you become you?
That's deep, Justin.
That is the longest, most wandering intro / question.
A lot of life got me here, I think. So
Yeah.
I appreciate the fact that as one of the nonprofits that I work with, that you're acknowledging the way we approach things is working. That means a lot. As you said, I came from the nonprofit world. Now that I am on the corporate philanthropy side, one of the most important things to me is to make sure that we are operating from a trust-based philanthropy standpoint and making sure that we're making it easy for you to do the good work that you're doing.
Yeah.
We have to make sure that, first and foremost, every company has their pillars of giving. So we do have to look and say, is this a fit? But then once we realize, yes, this is a fit, we do like to look at it as a partnership. We don't want it to be transactional. As you said, it definitely can become.
Yeah.
When we can make it a partnership and remove the barriers for you to do the important work, that's when the impact happens.
Partnership and trust. Whew. Trust-based philanthropy. I think we'll get to sort of, again, the nonprofit backbone and background and all the stuff that you bring. But from your vantage point, what, in an ideal community, ideal nonprofit community, ideal Lansing, what does trust-based what does trust-based philanthropy look like, or what are some of the elements of it?
It looks like a lot of communication and a lot of collaboration. I think that the only way trust-based philanthropy can exist is when our nonprofits, as you said, are being good stewards of those dollars, and they're communicating with the funders in a manner that allows us to know what's happening and that it's happening right. And, the collaboration piece happens. It's easier as a funder to say, yes, we're going to support this when we know our nonprofits are communicating with each other and looking for those ways when they can work together instead of reinventing the wheel. And I know we've talked about that a lot at the Promise. We don't have to do all the things. We have to work with all of the people who can do all the things to make the big thing happen.
That's right. Well, and it's interesting as we even move forward in that conversation, and that's kind of, there's a couple of pieces of that as to why we're even, what sparked these conversations, these listening sessions, right? Which is, we do need to, number one, understand who's doing what already in the city, because we're not the best fit for everything. And in fact, we're only the best fit for some things. But we have a vested interest in our kids being successful. And so that means in mentoring, there are organizations that mentor well, and we need to be tied into them. There are organizations that can reach our kids effectively through hip-hop, through sports, through what we're calling interest-based mentoring, and we need to work with them. There are folks doing retaliatory gun violence intervention. We don't need to run the program, but we do need to work with them. And so as we do that, you've always played a very unique role in being able to ask the right questions around who's doing that work and how might we partner. From your vantage point, we talked about trust. Let's walk down that partnerships route for a minute. What is working in Lansing on a partnership basis from your perspective?
I think when we talk about working in Lansing specifically on a partnership basis, we're really talking about having a conversation and acknowledging whose wheelhouse is what. I know what my strengths are.
Yeah.
My strengths are not yours.
Sure.
And so in order to have a good partnership, we need to acknowledge who's going to do what to move the needle, as you said.
Yeah.
And I think in Lansing, that is, easier than it is in some of the communities we work in. I've said many times, and I think you have as well, I acknowledge logically that Lansing is the state capital and it's a big city, but it feels like a small town. I mean, I don't claim to know all of the nonprofits that are here, but it sure feels like we know most of them. We're neighbors, we're partners, we see each other at events, we're talking about what are you doing, how can we work together, how can we help each other, and that just seems to flow a little bit more organically here, I think.
Yeah, well, it is interesting. And all right, we'll zoom back even a little more. Your area that you cover ain't just Lansing.
No.
How big of an area do you cover? And then I guess we can get into, and Carmen, what's your role at Delta Dental? Probably should have started there. I'm pretty unorthodox.
My role at Delta Dental is the head of corporate citizenship and community affairs. That encompasses corporate giving, employee volunteer coordination, and a whole bunch of other things that I like to say just is about seeing what Delta Dental can do to make our communities a better place.
That's good. And territory. How big of a spot do you cover?
We are Delta Dental of Michigan, Ohio, and Indiana, so we have a tri-state footprint.
That's awesome.
It's a decent size area to try to make better.
Well, and what's wild about it too is, of course, and as I know you and have watched you continue to operate, you actually care, and that's both a blessing and a burden to you, I'm sure. Because when you're seeing nonprofit organizations working in Detroit and in Ohio and in wherever you are covering, there's a lot of worthy organizations. And so to understand, it seems to me, to understand the fabric and the network going on in a given community is not easy, but as you establish that trust and that presence, right, to your point, cities do become smaller, while impact becomes deeper. Now, that's Delta. I mean, let me credit Delta for a minute. You all do a great job, not just investing capital, but investing human capital in time, right? You happen to grace us with your presence on the board and have for a while now on the Promise board, now taking on the vice chair role. Thank you. Blood in, blood out. So, you're here for a while. We will eventually establish real term limits and all that stuff. Don't you worry. Under yours and Abel's leadership, we're going to have good term limits. We're going to have strategic planning. We're going to have all the good things. But thank you for being willing to lead, because you lead with a servant heart. And I think it really draws folks in. In that leadership role, what drew you to the Lansing Promise in particular?
All the things. That's not a great answer.
That's a really good answer.
I think it was easy for me to connect with the Promise. I was, what feels like a million years ago, because I'm old now, I was one of those students who could have greatly benefited from the Promise. I grew up in a very poor family. I am first in my family to attend college, and that wouldn't have happened without scholarships.
Yeah.
So seeing that Lansing had a mechanism for all of those students to do what I struggled to do was just, that was an immediate, got me right here. Yeah. I know firsthand how worthwhile and important that is.
Yeah.
So.
And scholarships are one thing. You and I have talked a lot about it's a scholarship and approach. And doesn't mean everything. And means concepts around readiness, engagement, preparation, completion, right? All the pieces of that make a whole total package for, if we're going to look at it financially, from a return on investment. If we're going to invest $10 or $15 or $20,000 into the experience of a student, right, we also need to ensure that that is utilized effectively by students staying inspired, staying motivated, staying a part of things. But even within that, you've also always had a heart both on the, what I would call sort of the earlier intervention side and in the, I'm going to say, career side. Which one do you want to talk about first?
I think on the early intervention side, that, that's of great interest to me. Being from Delta Dental, we're a dental insurance company, of course, but our corporate mission is to improve oral health. And, that's one aspect of overall health. So when we're looking at what is important in the community for us to support from a corporate philanthropy standpoint, we're looking at the social determinants of health. And, those are all of those economic and social factors that influence our health. And really what we know is that the social determinants of health impact 80% of how healthy you are going to be as a person. 20% is the genetics and all of that stuff that you think of initially when you're thinking about health. And one of the most important social determinants of health is education. So when we're talking about the Promise, from beginning to end, it's all about that education, but there are so many ways that impacts our children. We've talked and celebrated really how amazingly the Lansing School District has approached and improved dropout rates. And we know through studies, many studies that have been done, one of the contributing factors, one of the really strong contributing factors to dropout is hopelessness. When our children look around and all of the adults in the community that they're in are struggling, they think, my goodness, it doesn't matter what I do, I'm going to end up like this. What is the motivation to stay in school? And then I look at what we're doing with the Promise. I watch you go into those schools and take the Promise Pledge with those kids. So from an early age, they know, I have hope.
Yeah.
And that is extremely important.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Even last night we were at Sexton and had like one of the largest senior class dinners we've ever had, right? Like 60, 70 families. And it's the same conversation. We've been talking to them since 6th grade, right? Now, do we need to get earlier? Probably. But to see these kids, they always light up and get a little like giggly when we say, you know, why would a community invest? Because you're beloved. Right? And it's, some folks have heard it before, so they think, oh yeah, we're beloved. Some folks need to be reminded what that means, right? To be loved. And so what really happens if a community, from the education side, from the corporate side, from the nonprofit side, from the faith community, from the family side, from the neighbor side, all see our kids as those beloved, worthy next generation, right? Things change. And it's in that early intervention, to your point, really is about building whole kids with a holistic approach, right? To ensure that we've not only met the social determinants of health, but in fact, this ain't about survival now, but it's about thriving, right? To the degree that if our kids have early intervention, they understand they are beloved, they understand who they can become. To your point, they have some hope breathed into them, right? Not talked at, but spoken to.
Yes.
Then they really can become Promise scholars who can then become our future leaders, moms, dads, neighbors, colleagues. You've had a heart for that mom, dad, neighbor, colleague, professional, I think, for a very long time. And you've been incredibly patient as we have worked to build out, right, some of these concepts of how we connect scholars into jobs and specifically into career fields. Mm-hmm. You've been a part of a number of conversations that we've started. We're going to be having quite a few conversations coming up about how we're finally, I think, going to get it right in a way that connects our scholars to the business community in a very real and meaningful way. But you've always had a heart for that. In your heart of hearts, what might career development look like, or a career pathway look like, for our Promise scholars?
I think the answer to that is a little bit heart and a little bit business mind.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you talk about making sure that our Promise scholars, our future scholars, know that they are beloved, and they are.
Yeah.
But I think it's also important from a business standpoint for them to know you are our future. You are an amazing, untapped resource.
Yeah.
Certainly from a corporate philanthropy standpoint, yes, we want to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
But we're also a little selfish. As a business, we need amazing people to be successful. And so we have a very vested interest in making sure that our Lansing kids grow up to be our Lansing region employees in the next however many years.
Yeah.
We can't be successful without people.
I'll say, Carmen, that human, that people-centered focus to me makes all the difference, right? Because it's one thing to say, and a lot of promises, right? So when we started in 2012, that was our first scholarships given. And in fact, James Curry, who will be on this podcast later, was in that class of 2012. We were one of 50 programs like ours in the country, place-based scholarship. There's now more than 400 programs like ours that call themselves Promise and are a place-based scholarship. And yet, what we have found is, depending how you approach the program, it either is, well, let's wait and see. I hope these kids reach us, right? And that's the first piece, which is sort of your typical scholarship, right? That's not a go and get, that's a wait. Then the scholarships become, well, if they get below a certain GPA, they're out. And that's, to be clear, if our kids get below a certain GPA, they're still in, but we also want academic intervention, life intervention, because we know something's taking place that's causing our students to get below the grade level they can get, right? So we take it serious, but we don't make it punitive, right? We make it double down on resources. But it seems to me that yourself, Abel, and a good number of folks in Lansing seem to understand that this actually also isn't about talent development in building widgets for a machine. Mm-hmm. This is about talent development building people, right, in a very meaningful way, because they're going to be our future professionals. And I get it's the same concept, talent development is talent development, but there's a very big difference in how you present it versus other ways I've heard it.
Sure, I think that's accurate. I think that not all employees are the same. And I think that we have great hope that in investing in our Lansing students, that understanding that the community, the business community, the philanthropy community have invested in them, the hope is that they won't just be an employee at Delta Dental or Dean Transportation or wherever. They'll be an engaged employee, which means they are contributing to the community. And that's where it all happens. I mean, I think in my role at Delta Dental, there are a lot of different things that I do. The employee volunteer program is by far the most rewarding. We're a great company. Our employees are the most amazing asset, hands down. I can write a check to several different nonprofits in the community. It's not the same as when that's paired with a group of motivated employee volunteers or an employee who wants to sit on a board and really get into that granular level of helping that organization. That's right. And my hope is that that's what our Lansing Promise scholars will become, not just punch in, punch out.
So imagine that, right? So real cool. We had a school reach out to us and say, hey, we got a whole new English language arts curriculum. And for our elementary students, they have a specific literacy kit. And this kit takes so much putting together that our teachers can't do it. Promise, we need some help. And so we got reached out. We said, this is a very cool problem to have. Kids are going to learn in new ways how to read. Good. We want kids to read. But we don't have the staffing power. And so we were able to reach out to you, and you said, hey, funny you'd mentioned, we have volunteers who really care, and we happen to have an opening, ... To see Delta Dental, which is a incredible company, generally speaking, to see folks hungry to help our kids learn to read by doing the work that isn't always sexy, right? Putting literacy kits together, by popping things out and putting boxes together and everything else is going to entail. But the willingness to do it, that's a remarkable culture you guys are building. It also sets a tone for exactly what you just said, which is imagine if our students see adults, not their parents, who care for them and who are willing to do the work that needs to be done so that the next generation has what they need. That sounds kind of Pollyannish, except that it's working. Right? Like we have scholars now who are 30 years old, who are professionals in a lot of different organizations. From your vantage point, let's talk, if we could, for a second. I know we've been jumping a little, but it's all related in my head. Nonprofit board development with an eye for young professionals. So you are, I'm just going to say this, I've counseled on the legal side more than 1,000 nonprofit organizations in the last 15 years. I've worked with more than 1,000 nonprofit boards in the last 15 years. 1, I would put the Promise board against any of them. 2, you have a vantage point that I think is thoughtful, it's responsive, it challenges me in all the good ways, but also does it in a way where I feel like, oh no, that's actually the much better way to go. That's the proper governance model. That's the proper structure. That's the proper, in a way that I don't feel like I have to shy away from sharing concerns, vulnerabilities. Guys, I don't know how to do this part. And then I have a board who says, okay, let's figure it out together. That's an amazing model. How is it that we begin to draw more young professionals into board leadership in our community?
Well, I think certainly the most simple answer to that is that our nonprofit organizations need to carefully consider what the role of those young professionals are. I think oftentimes we have nonprofits that want board members who are of a certain title and above. And that's absolutely understandable for a variety of reasons.
Sure.
But I think it's imperative to consider what everyone has to bring to the table, regardless of title. I've seen some nonprofits do a fantastic job of creating young leader boards or young leader committees that participate on the board. And truthfully, I think that is one of the best ways to engage those young leaders. It's allowing them to contribute in the way that they're able at that time, while seeing the other ways of the larger board being modeled to them, so that then they are ready. You're creating a beautiful pipeline of leadership for the nonprofit in doing that.
Well, it's interesting you say that too, in the modeling of how to do it properly. I, in my counseling role, no organizations in Lansing. Let me put my attorney hat in for a second. No organizations in Lansing. Not all board members know exactly the expectations of the board, how to effectively navigate their role on the board. I don't know if you know this. Boards are made up of people. Oh, what do they say? Organizations would be a lot easier to run if they didn't have any people on them. Turns out we also wouldn't have organizations to run at that point, or any reason. But within that, there is a beauty in seasoned board members setting an example that, I got to be honest, cannot be taught in any training. Right?
That's fair.
Are there a few... What would it look like? No, that's the wrong question. How do we, as a community, inspire the next generation? Or do we even need to, or do we simply need to make a path and get out of the way toward that board leadership, from your vantage point?
Yes, all of the above.
Okay, fair enough.
I think that we need to make sure that our young people know, first and foremost, that this is a thing. You know, I didn't go into my career in the nonprofit world. I mean, I went in right out of college, but I spent way too much time in college because I didn't know this was a thing until my junior year. So I think they need to understand these nonprofits exist. This is how they are able to exist. This is how they are governed, and we need you to help with that. I think that some of it, depending on the individual, some of it is get out of their way. Some of it, though, is that we have a lot of people who have amazing gifts and talents to share, but they need that invitation. They need that hand-holding. Hey, Justin, come here. Let me introduce you to this. I would really like to personally invite you because I see this in you, and that would help our organization in this way. I think we have a lot of people who have a tendency to think, oh, they don't need me. I don't have that much to give. I'm not that important. Well, they don't know what our board looks like.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not needed on this board. Maybe they have 5 people like you.
Yeah.
But maybe this one has no one like you, and you could make a tremendous impact. We need to make sure that they're aware of that.
Yeah. That concept of identifying and drawing talent out. We could do lots of trainings and podcasts on that. But are there any sort of if you had to give advice to those who think the way we think in this way, we need more next generation leadership within the nonprofit world, within boards, or we need our employees to see themselves as valuable members of the community in whatever way they are, right? The credible messenger that they are. Would you have a word of advice or encouragement on how it is that we encourage the development of these pathways?
I think, again, so many things for me come down to communication.
Yeah.
I think that it's important when you're on a board to make sure you're conveying to your board members what it is the board needs and asking them, please, as you are out in the community, certainly as you are at your place of business, look up, look around, talk to people, get to know what their strengths are. And then don't be shy to just ask. I think there are a lot of people that think, oh, well, that's not my job.
Yeah.
Well, it's all of our job.
Because if it's no one's job, it really doesn't get done.
Right.
That's their job, that's their job, that's their job. Yeah. So, if this works, here's what works. If we were able to build the following platform, pipeline, continuum, whatever your flavor is, where young people who are in Head Start are getting toothbrushes
Yes, they are.
from you guys. We saw some videos. These kids are all kinds of cute and all kinds of smart, right? They're learning to read. They're learning to grow. They're learning an identity of academics and of value. They move into a district in which they're learning about both financial literacy as well as academic literacy. They're doing math. They're doing these things. They learn about promise and understand that there's a way. Now, promise isn't an end game. Promise is a means to get to an end game, right? They begin to understand what career interests or potential interests they may have. They then move into some kind of post-secondary placement, right? Whether it's skilled trades, college, certificate, whatever it is that we can help provide and offer. During that time, they then get an internship with an organization like, oh, I don't know, Delta Dental, or something else that they have interest in, right? And so we build that internship expectation. From there, they take a couple years to get their feet on the ground. And then we begin to have adults who are in that more established realm, keeping an eye out for interests and talents of these young people and beginning to make those placements and connections between the kids' passions and the community they love. Can we do that?
We can do anything. We just have to communicate and ask the right people, right?
Yeah. Huh. Carmen Argersinger, you are a remarkable philanthropic professional, nonprofit professional, board member, mother, we didn't even talk about that, mother, and friend to the Promise. Thank you for being who you are and for doing what you do. You remain a champion to our cause and to many other causes. You may not know how much confidence you bring to myself and many of the nonprofit directors in this city, but understand sometimes you're the only one who can really help us understand the wind at our back.
Thank you.
Madam Vice Chair, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Look. Okay, 51-7, take it to the grave. Legends never die, that's why we still awake. Sun keep beaming, city still breathing. Living in the moment, never gonna leave it. 51-7, take it to the grave. Legends never die, that's why we still awake. Sun keep beaming, city still breathing. Living in the moment, never gonna leave it. Been too
many moments of silence, too many lives have been lost to gun violence. My God, we need some guidance. It's the same city that can be so tragic, also produces a brother like Shabazz and births a man like magic. Why I'm Lansing, born and raised, 517 to the grave. We got culture in our veins, we take the reins. With reformation comes a promise, better future is upon us. You can doubt it like Thomas, but we gon' rise like Adonis, and ain't nobody gon' stop us. We gon' get better, this a letter to my city that we fed up. Ain't gon' let applying pressure until everybody gets it. They can't try us, they can't buy us, gentrify us. When it's coming to my city, man, I'm blue collar bias. They can't divide us, united we stand, like digits on a hand. Make it to the promised land, we coming up with a plan to make this a better place. I'm proud of Lansing, you can see it on my face. We gotta retrace and learn how to win this race.
51-7, take it to the grave. Legends never die, that's why we still awake. Sun keep beaming, city still breathing. Living in the moment, never gon' leave it. 51-7, take it to the grave. Legends never die, that's why we still awake. Sun keep beaming, city still breathing. Living in the moment, never gon' leave it. I ain't never seen a city sleep, you can really hit a city breathe. They be saying we ain't got culture, they just don't know what it really means. No, we gotta represent heavy under ready, yeah, we gotta make a scene. No shade to the other guys, but you can't deny we the one to be. Capital city, the map looking pretty when we on it. So community driven, the people we living with, loving each other, that's all that we seeking for. Ain't no reason to need more. A lot of people saying go to the D for it, so we need to be seen more. Dream more, need a reason to be more, we just gotta believe more. I mold my style around the influences that I've witnessed. A new beginning, truer vision, it'll soon be finished. Endless inspiration from the people that I've known. Yes, I've grown to love the city as the city made me grown. Know whatever way you choosing for yourself to be expressed, there's a place that's meant for you so you can grow into your best. I can attest to its greatness with my chest, I'm here to say it. We will soon become the mecca of success. I'm expecting nothing. 51-7, take it to the grave. Legends never die, that's why we still awake. Sun keep beaming, city still breathing. Living in the moment, never gon' leave it. 51-7, take it to the grave. Legends never die, that's why we still awake. Sun keep beaming, city still breathing. Living in the moment, never gon' leave it.